Hello, dear students. In the last classes, we were discussing about Come September, the powerful lecture Arundhati Roy delivered in New Mexico. We saw her attack against US foreign policy. So let's begin. Of them, Madeleine Albright, then US ambassador to the United Nations, famously said, "It's a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it." Madeleine Albright is an American politician, and she said that it's a very hard choice to be in war about economic sanctions, penalties, but we think the price is worth it. Moral equivalence was the term that was used to denounce those of us who criticized the war on Afghanistan. Madeleine, she compares the minor misdeeds of critics who criticized the war on Afghanistan, compared minor misdeeds of these critics, compares illegal acts of these critics with the major issues that was war in Afghanistan, war of America in Afghanistan, saying that both are morally wrong. Both of things are immoral. Arundhati Roy derides Madeleine Albright, says Madeleine Albright cannot be accused of moral equivalence. What she said was just straightforward algebra. She denounced critics. A decade of bombing has not managed to dislodge Saddam Hussein, the beast of Baghdad. These 10 years of bombings, attacks couldn't remove Saddam Hussein from Iraq. Now almost 12 years on, been 2002, 1990s to 2002, President George Bush Jr. has ratcheted up the rhetoric once again. He made a speech once again, and he is proposing an all-out war whose goal is nothing short of a regime change. President George Bush Jr. and he is proposing an all-out war, a war again, and the goal of the war is a regime change to remove Saddam Hussein from power. The New York Times says that the Bush administration is following, quote, a meticulously planned strategy to persuade the public, the Congress, and the allies of the need to confront the threat of Saddam Hussein. The American daily New York Times said that the government of US carefully planned a plan of action to persuade the public, the people in America, to persuade the Congress, to persuade the allies that support US, the need to confront the threat of Saddam Hussein. They persuaded people about the threat of other countries face because of Saddam Hussein. Why is it so? Because the team of Saddam Hussein, many scientists had invented chemical weapons and biological weapons that can destroy others. Andrew H. Card Jr., the White House Chief of Staff, he described how the administration was stepping up its war plans for the fall. Andrew H. Card Jr., the White House Chief of Staff, described how the administration was stepping up its war plans against Iraq for the fall of Saddam Hussein. And I quote, Arundhati Roy quotes Andrew H. Card. From a marketing point of view, you don't introduce new products in August. War plans he used. New products he used for war plans. This time, catchphrase for Washington's new product is not the plight of Kuwaiti people, but the assertion that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. America was putting forward that, not about the plight of Kuwaiti people, how much the people of Kuwait has suffered. then that is the reason to knock down Saddam Hussein. That was not the thing they put forward, but they put forward the assertion that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, biological weapons, chemical weapons of mass destruction. And so Hussein should be replaced. He should be dislodged. Richard Perk, a former advisor to President Bush, he wrote, "Forget the feckless moralizing of peace lobbies. Forget, ignore the irresponsible moralizing rhetoric of speech lobbies. You have to go ahead with the war." Why they are saying so? We need to get him before he gets us, before he attacks us, since he had biological weapons, chemical weapons in him with him, before he attacks us. America need to get him. America, it's assuming the role of a world police here to save all other countries from Iraq's threat of biological and chemical weapons. Iraq President Saddam Hussein should be dislodged from its power. Arundhati Roy continues, weapons inspectors have conflicting reports of the status of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. And these weapon inspectors said that many have said clearly that its arsenal has been dismantled and that it doesn't have the capacity to build one. The weapon inspectors who joined Iraq to check the weapons of Iraq, they said that their place where weapons were stored, or their weapons, collection of weapons, were completely destroyed, and Iraq doesn't have the capacity to build a new arsenal. However, there is no confusion over the extent and range of America's arsenal of nuclear and chemical weapons. Arundhati Roy derides the attitude of American government, attitude of UK, attitude of Israel. They can keep n number of nuclear and chemical weapons. They are not threat to the world. They can attack at any time if they want. They will not be questioned by others. They can keep on collecting, they can increase their weapon collection, their weapons, their armory, their other things, their array of weapons they can collect, they can increase. There is no confusion over the arsenal of America and other major countries. US government and Arundhati Roy posing a question, would the US government welcome weapons inspectors to America to check their collection of weapons, to check their collection of nuclear and biological weapons? Would the US government welcome inspectors there? Would the UK government welcome weapons inspectors to their country to check their arsenal? Would the Israeli government welcome weapons inspectors to their country to check the arsenal? She's posing a question there. She's raising a question there. These countries can keep all the weapons with themselves, and they are denying the other countries a right to store weapons. They say that they are a threat to the society. Arundhati Roy asks whether these countries are also a threat to the society. She poses a question there. What if Iraq does have a nuclear weapon? Does that justify a preemptive US strike? Arundhati Roy questions. What's the problem if Iraq has this nuclear weapon? Will that justify the attack of US on Iraq? Because she is giving the answers here. The US has the largest collection, arsenal, store place of nuclear weapons in the world. And the United States is the only country in the world to have actually used the nuclear weapons on civilian populations on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. If the US is justified in launching a preemptive strike on Iraq, why then any nuclear power is justified in carrying out a preemptive strike on any other? Arundhati Roy questions if the US can be justified when launching a strike on Iraq, speaking that they are the threat to America, why then any nuclear power is justified, then any other country which has this nuclear power is justified when they carry an attack against other country. She's stating that if that is the case, India, for example, India, the country who has nuclear weapon, can conduct a nuclear attack on Pakistan, saying that they are a threat, saying that they raise a threat of attack. They have raised a threat of attack, so they could use the nuclear weapon on the other country. She's asking, India could attack Pakistan if this is the case, or the other way around, or Pakistan can attack India if that is the case. If the US government develops a distaste for, say, the Indian Prime Minister, can it just take him out with a preemptive strike? She questions. She lashes out the US government, saying that if the US government doesn't like a standby Indian Prime Minister, can they just dislodged the Prime Minister of India from power? Speaking about this preemptive strike, as they are a threat, can they do it like that? She questions. Recently, the United States played an important part in forcing India and Pakistan back from the brink of war. In the Kargil war, United States pressured Pakistani administration to end hostilities between the countries to end war. Is it so hard for the America to take its own advice? Arundhati Roy asks questions. For America to stop from war, is it too difficult? Can't they follow their own advice? Can't they abstain themselves from the war? Who is guilty of feckless moralizing? Earlier, she has mentioned Richard Perk, the former advisor to President Bush, stated that forget the feckless moralizing, irresponsible moralizing comments of peace lobbies. And Arundhati Roy questions here, who is guilty? Who is giving these feckless moralizing? Or preaching peace while it wages war? America preaches peace, but at the same time, it attacks other nations. The US, which George Bush has called the most peaceful nation on earth, has been war with one country or another every year for the last 50. Wars are never fought for altruistic reasons. Wars are never fought for other countries without any self-interest. It's not like that. They are usually fought for hegemony, they are fought for business, they are fought to hold power, and then of course there's the business of war, money. Wars are not fought for the well-being of other nations without any self-interest. It's fought for the business purpose, for maintain power in the society. Protecting its control of the world's oil is fundamental to US foreign policy. Oil is a major concern for the US government. The US government's recent military interventions in the Balkans and Central Asia have to do with oil. When the US invaded Central Asia and Balkans, their military interventions was focusing on oil control. the economy of the oil, the supply and demand of the oil. Balkans is a geographic area that comprises of Albania, Bosnia, Serbia, Slovenia, and several other countries in Southeast Europe. Their invasion was rooted in oil. Hamid Karzai, the puppet president of Afghanistan, installed by the United States is said to be a former employee of Unocal, the American-based oil company. Hamid Karzai served as an president of Afghanistan from 2001 to 2014. After the September 11 attack of 2001, America waged war against Afghanistan. From December 2001 to 2014, Hamid Karzai was the president of Afghanistan. And Arundhati Roy says that he was the puppet president of Afghanistan. He was installed by US government only as the president of Afghanistan. And it has been said Hamid Karzai was an employee of Unocal, the American-based oil company. The US government's paranoid patrolling of the Middle East is because it has two-thirds of the world's oil reserves. The US government's paranoid patrolling, the fear or the apparently what they are waging war against the other countries because they feel that they are the threat to the other countries, and their patrolling of the Middle East, invading Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq, is because it has two-thirds of the world's oil reserves. Because the Middle East possess world's two-thirds of the world's oil reserves. Holding power on oil is crucial to America as it is a capitalist nation. Everything America, lakhs of motor cars are running. The life is not disturbed. The country is working for the best to become the world's superpower. They need oil control, and oil keeps the free market rolling. The economic system, it is the economic system based on supply and demand. Where there is supply, there is more demand of the product. Whoever controls the world's oil controls the world's market. And how do you control the oil? Oil supply, it keeps free market in America rolling. It has the major role in American economy system. Nobody puts it more elegantly than the New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman. He is an American political commentator and author. He is also a 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner. In an article called Craziness Pays, he said, the US has to make it clear to Iraq and US allies that American will use force without negotiation, hesitation, or UN approval. The Pulitzer Prize winner states it clearly that America will use their force, their weapons, without any approval, without any hesitation. His advice was well taken. In the wars against Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as in the almost daily humiliation the US government heaps on the UN. In his book on globalization, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, Friedman says, and I quote, "The hidden hand of the market will never work without the hidden fist. McDonald's cannot flourish without McDonnell Douglas, and the hidden fist that keeps the world safe for Silicon Valley's technologies to flourish is called the US Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps." Perhaps this was written in a moment of vulnerability, but it's certainly the most succinct, accurate description of the project of corporate globalization that I have read. She says that the corporate world will not work without the help of the government. corporate world functions with the help of the government only. McDonald's, the brand, cannot flourish throughout the world without McDonnell Douglas. Without the help of McDonnell Douglas airliners, the flights that operates, McDonald's cannot flourish throughout the world. The Friedman mentions that the hidden fist that keeps the world safe from all problems or atrocities, are is called the US Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. They themselves take the position of world police. And these forces, US Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, that functions as the world police that keeps the world safe for the technologies in the world. Friedman has mentioned Silicon Valley technologies. Silicon Valley is a global center for technological innovation and it is located in California. It is a home to a lot of technological innovations. Several internet companies are working there. Companies include Apple, Google, Facebook. All these companies work in Silicon Valley, which is located in California. And the government itself, America, keeps the world safe. That is, the corporate globalization functions according to US government policies. The large corporations, these technological giants, reaches various parts of the world. Government, with the help of its force, its Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, flourishes its technologies across the globe. The profit from the underdeveloped country from these large corporations reaches US. The money flow is never blocked in US. Perhaps this was written in a moment of vulnerability by Friedman, but it is certainly the most succinct, accurate description of the project of corporate globalization that I have read. Arundhati Roy states that this is the accurate description of globalization. The American writer itself spoke about this. She says that maybe he was made to write these things, but it has become the accurate description of the corporate globalization that she has ever read. After the 11th of September 2001 and the war against terror, the hidden hand and fist have had their cover blown. It was no longer hidden. The corporate globalization, the large corporations extending their financial developments into other countries, and the support given by American government to control the world was not a hidden thing. We have a clear view now of America's other weapon. It is free market, controlling the economy of the world, bearing down on the developing world with a clenched, unsmiling smile. Arundhati Roy states that it is the new weapon of America, that is the free market. Free market always create unemployment and inequality among people. Only the certain members of the society can work in the markets. The profit will be with only one section. The profit is with only one section of society. Others will be left behind by the economy. They will fall into poverty. The free market system which US has moved on to the developing countries looks only for profit, and this profit moves to America, the imperial America. The primary objective for any company in the free market, they want to make profit. And in many cases, these multi corporations companies, they sacrifice the safety element, they sacrifice the environmental standards, and they only look forward to achieve profits. The task that never ends is America's perfect war, the perfect vehicle for the endless expansion of American imperialism, which was involved in several wars for a longer time. Their only motive was to expand American imperialism. They just want to extend the power and influence of the country to other countries. Earlier, they said that the task that never ends, that is the war against terrorism. And now Arundhati Roy says that it is the America's perfect war, the perfect vehicle for the endless expansion of its imperialism. In Urdu, the word for profit, as in profit, is faida. In Urdu, the word profit, English word profit, means faida. In Al Qaeda means the word of God, the law. The name of the terrorist organization, Al Qaeda, means the word of God. So, in India, some of us call the war against terror Al Qaeda versus Al Qaeda. Arundhati Roy states that it is the word versus word of God of Al Qaeda versus the Prophet. The underlying meaning that who is to be attacked, who is wrong, Al Qaeda or the America. Arundhati Roy continues, for the moment it looks as though Al Qaeda, that is profit oriented policy, corporate globalization of America, will carry the day. It flourishes all across the globe, that runs the world now, but then you never know what happens later. In the last 10 years of unbridled corporate globalization from 90s to 2000s, world's total income has increased by an average 2.5% a year. Economy has increased, and yet the income has increased, and yet the numbers of poor in the world has increased by 100 million. Even though income has increased in the world, poor people, their number increased by 100 million. So, who is gaining the profit? Of the top 100 biggest economics, 51 are corporations, not countries. MNCs, 51 are corporations. Countries are not coming into the front line. Corporations, they have hold on the economy. Definitely it is backed by the country also. The top 1% of the world has the same combined income as the bottom 57%, and that disparity is growing. The richest people always remains rich, and the poor people, they remain in that condition throughout their life. And in the corporate world, the world of corporate globalization, numbers of poor people has increased. 57% remain under poverty. And now, under the spreading canopy of the war against terror, this process is being hustled along. The men in suits are in an unseemly hurry, the corporate world in unseemly hurry. Corporate world continues to work. At the same time, in the other parts of the world, while bombs rain down on us, attacks from the government, American government, cruise missiles skid across the skies, while nuclear weapons are stockpiled in America. To make the world a safer place, they adopt the role of world police. Contracts are being signed, treaties are being signed, patents are being registered, oil pipelines are being laid by the country, by America. Natural resources are being plundered. Natural resources of other countries are being taken for their own purposes. That is, they open their industries in other developing countries. They use their natural resources and they use the labor force of the developing countries, and they take away the profit to their country, to America. They expand the new imperialism throughout the world. Water is being privatized, democracies are being undermined. Democratic governments were wiped away, and the ruling power on the basis of economy of America was influenced many other countries. So children, I'm stopping here and we will continue with come September in our next class. Thank you.